Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we are tackling a really massive milestone for PhD scholars and educators alike, and that is cracking a top-tier academic journal. Look, if you're researching English language teaching, engineering English, or academic writing, you already know how incredibly competitive publication has become, right? It's tough out there. You don't just need a good paper anymore. You need the exact right target and a literal blueprint for what those specific editors want to see. So we are opening up the ultimate insider's guide to publishing in ESP Today, the Journal of English for specific purposes at tertiary level. We're going to decode their specific publication criteria step by step right here. Okay, let's dive right into our syllabus for today. We'll be looking at the ESP Today Advantage, cracking the research topic, winning methodologies, structuring for success, and finally, ethics and submission rules. Starting with Section 1, the ESP Today Advantage, and why this journal is such a strategic target. So before you type a single word of your manuscript, you have to know exactly why you are targeting a specific journal. For researchers focusing on tertiary-level English, especially in fields like engineering education, finding a journal that genuinely aligns with your highly specific niche is literally half the battle. And just look at the sheer caliber of this publication. For 2024, we're talking about a journal impact factor of 2.2 at a site score of 2.8. Even more impressively, for Scopus-related metrics, it currently sits comfortably in the Q1 quartile. If your objective is to strengthen a Ph.D. thesis publication record, build up a profile for future research supervision, or just give a massive boost to your academic CV, you absolutely need high-impact targets exactly like this one. But here is the massive hook for you guys. The article processing charge is zero. That's right, there's absolutely no publication fee to publish in ESP Today. It's an open access journal utilizing a CC BY 4.0 license, which basically means authors retain their copyright while granting the journal the right of first publication. Honestly, getting a strong Scopus Q1 index publication without having to pay a massive processing fee, it's incredibly rare and strategically brilliant for any scholar. I do want to quickly bust a really common myth right here, though. If you happen to be a scholar tracking, say, the Anna University Department of English journal list, you'll be super happy to know ESP Today is explicitly included there. But, and this is a big but, publication alone does not automatically guarantee supervisor recognition. That whole process still depends entirely on your specific institutional regulations, your department status, and your overall faculty experience. So, definitely treat this journal as a powerful component of your career strategy, but, not a magic wand. Moving into Section 2. Cracking the research topic. We need to go from generic ideas to publishable problems. Having a high-value target journal is amazing, but it isn't enough. We need to know exactly what the editors actually want to read. This journal specifically focuses on English for specific purposes in tertiary education. If your study is just a general English language classroom study, just casually slapping the word ESP onto your title isn't going to cut it. There's a massive difference between a desk rejection and getting to peer review. Think about a generic title like English Language Problems of Engineering Students. It's incredibly weak. It's way too broad. It basically just says, hey, students have problems. In stark contrast, a strong title instantly gives the editor an aha moment. Something like, Disciplinary Communication Needs of Undergraduate Engineering Students, a Mixed Methods ESP Needs Analysis. Boom. That specifies the target population, the exact disciplinary context, the specific skill being researched, and frames the whole thing with a clear ESP perspective. That is exactly what an international research article sounds like. To actually get to that kind of strong title, you really have to follow a golden formula. The absolute biggest mistake scholars make is choosing an interesting topic, handing out a quick questionnaire, running some statistics, and then trying to awkwardly force a paper out of it. Please don't do that. You need to start with the research problem itself, then define the context, find that lingering, unanswered gap in the literature, formulate your research questions, choose your methodology, and only then do you write your title. You have to construct a true disciplinary problem first. All right, on to Section 3, winning methodologies. It is time to move beyond the simple questionnaire. ESP Today expects robust, highly empirical designs. A study where, 100 students just complete a basic Likert scale questionnaire, that can be publishable somewhere, sure. But for a high-ranking Q1 journal like this, you are going to need a much, much stronger theoretical rationale and actual instrument validation. These are the methodological approaches the journal actively prefers and ranks highly. Mixed methods, where you combine quantitative surveys with qualitative interviews or writing samples, is incredibly strong. So is a quasi-experimental design design. That's where you have a pre-test, an 8 to 12-week intervention, and then a post-test. And they also really value genre analysis, where you break down the actual linguistic features of specific engineering or workplace documents.
I really want to highlight corpus-based research specifically for a second. This is when you utilize authentic language data combined with systematic linguistic analysis. So for example, instead of just asking engineering students if they struggle with vocabulary, you actually sit down and analyze 100 of their laboratory reports for things like lexical density, technical vocabulary, and hedging. Doing this bridges English for specific purposes perfectly with computational linguistics, and it makes for an absolute standout, highly empirical paper.
Let's look at Section 4, Structuring for Success. It's all about engineering your manuscript.
Writing for ESP Today requires a very specific architectural flow. You aren't just writing a college essay here. You are engineering a scientific manuscript. You absolutely must use clear sections and subsections going up to a maximum of 3 levels deep. And let's start right at the top with your abstract. ESP Today requires a strict 150 to 200-word abstract. Do not write a generic, rambling summary of your topic here. You need to follow this exact flow. Start with a brief background, state your purpose, summarize your method, highlight your key results, and finish with the practical implications of your work. Every single word in that abstract must earn its place.
So the crucial point here is understanding the difference between your results section and your discussion section. Remember this guiding light. Your results section merely tells the reader what you found in the raw data. Your discussion section must explain what that finding actually means in the real world. Why did it happen? Does it contradict previous studies? What does it actually mean for curriculum design? Never, ever confuse reporting data with true academic interpretation.
And when you're reporting those results, you have to justify your statistical choices. Merely typing out data was analyzed using SPSS is simply not going to fly for ESP Today. If you're looking at the difference between 2 groups, you explain that you used a t-test. If you're comparing a pre- and post-intervention, you used a paired t-test. And critically, listen to this, you must report effect sizes. Do not just report that a result was statistically significant, you have to report whether it had a small, medium, or large actual effect on the students. Backing up a bit to earlier in your paper, you're going to tackle the literature review. And I really need you to heed a major warning here. Treat your literature review like a conceptual funnel, not a laundry list. Avoid writing, author A said this, author B said that, author C said this. That is just a basic summary. Instead, organize your review by themes. Start with broad disciplinary communication, narrow it down to specific engineering requirements, and funnel it directly into the specific, unanswered research gap that your study is going to fill. Finally, Section 5, Ethics and Submission Rules, Crossing the Finish Line.
Okay, so you have the perfect topic. You've got robust methods and a beautifully structured manuscript. Now we need to prepare for the hard logistical rules and ethical standards you absolutely must pass before you can actually click that submit button. Let's talk about AI, because ESP Today has a very clear, very modern policy on this. AI is allowed for language editing, fixing your grammar, improving overall readability, and offering structural suggestions. However, AI is strictly banned for generating original scholarly content or replacing your own analytical contribution. You are the researcher, not the chatbot. AI cannot be listed as an author, and you must explicitly disclose your use of generative AI in your manuscript's acknowledgement section. Let's move along and see how this builds into their rapid-fire submission criteria. Your final manuscript must be a maximum of 8,000 words, and yes, that absolutely includes your references, notes, and tables. As we covered, a 150 to 200-word abstract, a maximum of 6 keywords. It has to be written in English and submitted as an MS Word document. Once you hit submit, it undergoes a really rigorous double-blind peer review process, with reviewers typically getting back to you within 4 to 6 weeks.
I also want to leave you with a really strong warning regarding publication ethics, especially for the Ph.D. scholars tuning in. Please, do not simply copy and paste Chapter 4 of your thesis and submit it as an article. You must extract a distinct, focused research question from your larger data pool. At the same time, avoid what academia calls salami slicing, which is artificially dividing one meaningful result into a bunch of tiny, redundant publications just to pad your CV. Every single article you submit to ESP Today requires a legitimate, fully independent research contribution.
We've covered the metrics, the methodology, the structure, and the ethics. You now have the complete insider's blueprint for ESP Today. This is literally your roadmap to a high-impact, zero-fee publication. The only question left is, what will your ESP contribution be? It's time to find your research gap, design your study, and start crafting your submission today. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy writing!